All right, welcome to Pivot Lecture 4. This is going to be your last for today, and then we'll pick up with a series of lectures on Friday that I think are going to create the backdrop against much of the conversations that we'll have next week. I'm really going to pry into defining justice over the course of the next 2 weeks, since you're going to have to help me here because I want to hear your voices. Again, if we believe the article that we read for for Monday, then we believe that our interpretation and the definition of the word justice is going to have to come through a polyphony of voices rather than just simply one voice. So as we make our way through this, I'm hoping and praying that our collective voice begins to give definition to this word justice, which I think we just use and throw it around. And that's what I want to talk to us a little bit about today, is that we can't simply assume that when we use a word that we all mean the same thing by that word. And so part of what gets us into the challenges of the word justice is that justice is often understood within a set of conditions requisite for that word to mean something, or within the context of a certain number of narratives that gives that word shape. And so we have to begin to wrestle with a set of questions. And that's what I want to start with today. And so this lecture will probably be much shorter, but in some respects, it's building on the last lecture and then giving you something to think about, maybe even write down, as we move into the lectures on Friday. And that is, what do we mean by the word justice? Where does the word justice gain its definition? And doggone it, just don't say the Bible. What do you mean by that? Where do you find this word justice and injustice at work in the Bible? How would you define it? If you're going to say the Bible, how would you define it in light of the Bible? How does the life, ministry, teachings, death and resurrection of Jesus, the ascension of Jesus, the empowerment of the church, in what ways is justice represented in Jesus? And in what ways is justice to be represented in the people that Jesus calls his church? And if justice, like I said to us when we began, is not the end in of itself, but it's a conditional movement towards God's design of redemption of all things, reconciliation of humanity, then what functions does justice serve? In what ways does the church seek justice? Does justice mean the same thing for me as a follower of Jesus as it does for a secular humanist? Does justice in the 21st century as a white middle-class American mean the same as it did in ancient Greece, ancient Rome, or the ancient Middle East in which the Torah emerges? What are the conditions of justice and injustice? How do we navigate the complexities of a word that has such gravity and weight and meaning but seems so elusive to us too often? Why does the word justice bring such forceful reactions from people who would prefer we don't dabble around in the world of justice but stay locked on with the true meaning of what the gospel in Jesus means? Could it be that justice pokes and prods and pries around in areas that we would just assume leave unscathed by the gospel of Jesus? Is it possible for us to disconnect ourselves from the requirements of justice, that we can allow ourselves to feel spiritual but not to yield ourselves or give ourselves to the conditions of God's right making in the world, which for me is a way of defining the kingdom of God, God's right making of the world. So how do we tackle this word? What does this word mean for us? How do we make our way forward with this word? And how is this word different given our context, our narratives, and our embodiment than the way that this word would be understood in other environments. Here's a question. Do right-leaning conservatives mean the same thing about justice as left-leaning liberals? So that's a question I think is really important for us to recognize and understand. So I encourage you to dive in. Take these questions. Maybe listen to this. This is a short video, so listen to it a couple times and start charting out on a piece of paper. What do I mean by justice? Why did I take this paper? Why am I angry at times? Why, when I see something that feels unjust, am I even angry? What makes that situation feel unjust? Let's start wrestling with the material so that when we come to the questions and the conversation on Friday and then our live Zoom calls, hopefully it'll be in person, we'll see, but our live Zoom calls next week, that we can discuss a little bit more fully and in depth what you feel about injustice. We'll pick up more on Friday. I love y'all. Appreciate y'all deeply, dearly. I'm so glad to have you in the class. And I miss your faces. So enjoy the next couple days, and we'll see you soon.